Yes.
Oh yeah, so let's get to it. Today, I felt like the time I was a little scared earlier, actually. Because I was like, damn, are we gonna make it? Are we gonna get this podcast going?
Yeah.
But we're fucking here, bro. And I
Uh-huh.
cuss a lot, so I'm gonna work on
No,
that.
no,
So I
you're good, bro.
apologize, bro.
Do you?
I
Do
do.
you?
I'm so
Do
bad,
you,
bro.
bro?
All right. So yeah, brother. So for everybody, so for the people that don't know who Freddie is, he's a pro fighter, and we're gonna get into that at the very end of our conversation. But just so they can understand, can you explain to them your career and everything about you on
Yeah.
that topic?
Yeah.
A
So,
light touch, though.
yeah, basically my story up to this point is, it's one of, I would say, man, to not put it like lightly is a story of light and darkness. I mean, and, being attacked from a very young age. When I say attacked, I mean from, the dark powers that are not seen in this world, right?
Mm,
So, um, just having to fight, against that darkness throughout my whole um life from start till now. Um, I'd say that's the biggest thing, right? So, during my childhood, things, getting dealt a tough deck of cards to begin with.
mhm.
Um, trying to figure out my cards, where I laid and where I was, who I was. It was a long journey, and that I didn't find out until I had left my parents' house when I was 18. Lost a scholarship to Michigan State to wrestle.
So you did wrestle for a while in the beginning.
Yeah, so I started wrestling when I was 5. Started wrestling competitively. Was good right away. Got pushed to be great. Wrestling was my life as a child. That's all I did. And I got really good at it. I got good enough to the point where I was like the number 1 recruit in the nation,
Nice.
when I was in high school, at a certain point. And so, um, when you look at that and you look at, like, out of all kids in my grade, I was the number 1 recruit, at when I was in high school before I started messing up. And so, I would say, I was angry with the childhood I had. I had been adopted, I had been, you know, went through a lot, in my childhood. And so I was an angry boy, right? And
Mm,
so I was an angry boy who didn't express his feelings and had a lot of, anger to lash out against the world. And so it was me versus the world, as a boy, and, an angry boy. And so I left my parents' house when I was 18. When I had left at 18, I had a scholarship to wrestle at Michigan State. I had, won all the national tournaments there was to win. Um, you know, I was going for a 4th state title in high school. Um,
you said at 17?
18. So
18?
when I was 18,
Gotcha.
like a month after I had left, like school had just gotten over, like right at the end of May, early June.
Gotcha.
School had gotten out, and I, was like, yeah, I'm out.
And that's with your foster parents, correct?
My adopted parents.
Your
So my
adopted.
parents had adopted me. Yeah, they
Gotcha.
adopted me when I was 5. Great people. And so, yeah, it was just there was a lot that went on that, different perspectives in life, and that's what it was. And so, um, I had to go do some figuring out,
Yeah.
as an adult. I had left my house, and, I didn't really know anything about the world.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to figure things out about the real world, but, yeah, I would say, like, the moral, like, of what I'm trying to push and the message that I'm trying to share is that, God was with me along the way the entire time, but I didn't see it until I, you know, allowed the Holy Spirit to dwell, inside of me, and, open myself to the Holy Spirit. And,
Mm.
but when I look back so many times during my childhood, I look back and I'm like, I see where God was. I see where, my protector was. I see that there was always a plan, that there was always something that some protection, as much as
Mhm.
like darkness I felt, when I look back, I had a lot of comfort with just alone.
Yeah.
And so I know that that's not me. So I knew that, I guess it's a story of 2 sides. It's a story of anger, and it's a story of light.
So with that being said, like from like wrestling stage, you started at what age?
5.
5.
So
Damn,
when I was
5
adopted,
years old?
I started wrestling a couple months after after being adopted.
Whoa. And so who influenced you? Is that something that you just did or it's like somebody?
Yeah, so basically my dad took my dad took me and my brother to a high school wrestling tournament at the time. It was called the I forget what it was called. It was the it was where they took it was the honor roll meet, the CAC honor roll meet. And
Mhm.
we watched it was at Lansing Eastern, and he asked us if we wanted to wrestle after taking us. And my dad, asked me and my brother, and absolutely we were all about it. And when we stepped on the mat from day one, we were good. We were aggressive. I don't know if it was, things I had seen, prior to being adopted, foster care, going through the system, seeing other foster kids, I think I seen aggression from older kids through foster care. I don't know, but whatever it was, I seen it and I emulated it when I got the chance to, and I was instantly good.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that, like, getting into wrestling at that age. A lot of kids, they just because I've seen kids wrestle and they get straight to it and they're learning the techniques, but to tone down and like force, or I don't want to say force, but to channel your aggression, it's tough because some people don't have aggression because they haven't had like a tough background. But when you do have that aggression, you channel it, it kind of makes you a really great athlete, you
Mhm.
know? And so like when was you able to tune that in and feel like, okay, I got
I think it was right away. I think it was just like they told me go ahead, and I was like, wait, so I can just grab people and throw them down, like, and so I think it was instantly. That's why, like, when like what you brought up a good point was like struggle, right? So like with struggle, my son, he knows struggle, but not quite like I did,
Mhm.
but I create struggle for him, right? Like my
Mm,
son's, whether he's like trying to get away from me or whatever it is, I create some form of adversity for him, whatever it is. And I give him, like these tests almost where he doesn't like he might not understand like a different kind of struggle that I might have had to,
yeah.
but he's gonna understand struggle in one way or another. So that way he can have that
Yeah.
aggression. He can have that when he chooses to.
That's a good way to look at it actually, because we know, I mean, our kids are gonna leave one day and we're not gonna be there to protect them. I do the same thing with my son. I always try to find moments like where when it's tough for him, how is he gonna handle that?
Hmm.
What's his exit? Because his exit plan can be his downfall. So
Hmm.
that's a good way to
It
look at
often
it,
is.
you
It
know?
often is. It's a crutch that we created. It's a crutch that, it's something that, and we look for that to fall back on. But what happens when that is gone?
Yeah.
You're lost. You're alone. You feel afraid, right? Like those are the type of feelings that would come about if you were had an exit plan and it disappeared. Right now, you're like
Mm.
scrambling.
So you said you got all the way to 18 in wrestling.
Hmm.
During those times, did you ever get into like I don't wanna say into the, like, street violence and street issues, because like, as a kid, especially for me being as a kid, like, I was out there mad at the world, and I just reacted in with my feelings and punished everything I possibly can. Did you have those kind of effects? Like, did it affect you in a way in that way?
So I was never, I wasn't able to be out in the street, until I left my parents' house.
Mhm.
And so for me it was I found those circumstances that I could find that would allow me to exhibit that kind of behavior,
Mm,
right? So I might not have been out in the street doing that, but I was somewhere doing some form of that in some way, shape, or
yeah,
form. So whether it was bullying, which I was a mean bully when I was a kid. I had a lot of hate and a lot of anger and a lot of aggression. I was selfish. I was ruthless. I would use the word ruthless as a child. I was a ruthless, mean child,
yeah.
angry, hate, filled with it,
Mm,
you know?
yeah, I mean, I could see that too, because when you as a kid not getting what you need, which is love, that turns into hate, and then you find yourself creating that hate.
And it might not even be that you might not be getting love. You might not be getting love in the form that you might need it.
Yeah.
right? Like you could be getting love, but if you're not receiving the type of love that you need, then it may not feel like you're receiving that love, even if you are receiving love,
Gotcha.
right? Because people love in different ways, people need different things at different times. And so, you're getting loved, but it just might not be in the way that you need to be loved in that moment.
Yes, perfect. That's a perfect way to put it. Because you look at these men that are on the street, they're looking for love, but they're getting it in all the wrong ways, and then it gets them in these situations where they're like, "Okay, this felt like love, but it's not the love that they were looking for."
Well, there's certain aspects of like Freudian psychology that make sense. Like certain aspects, I'm not I'm not a big fan of his like psychology
Mm,
stuff, but I like more like Carl Jung and like the stuff that he like would push. But there's some stuff that Freud says that makes sense, like you said, a mother's love, and so then as older, you're
yeah.
gonna have some form of attachment issues or bondage issues to like stuff like that. And so that's where like it ties right into like faith, which I didn't really learn until I became older. And it took me time and it took, it's a journey. But I would say that's what like, my faith is what has my faith in my father, my creator, Jesus Christ, my savior.
Mhm.
Um, that is what's brought everything full circle to be able to heal from and then also to be able to grow. Um, Without the evolution of the spirit, I would be destroyed.
Now, for people that don't believe in God, 'cause there's a lot. I mean, and it's crazy because I think more the new age now. It's like a non-believer, right? So you bring up faith, but what's your definition of faith, so we can have the audience understand what is
Alright.
your defined
Faith
vision?
is, like, believing in what you can't see, right? Like,
Mm,
and that could be anything, right? So, um, like, for me, my faith is in the fact that a man named Yeshua,
mhm,
as we translate it to Jesus, died on the cross. He was sent from his Father, God, to come down, and God manifested into flesh and died on the cross to bear the weight of every sin that we will ever commit
mm,
as humans. Every sin that we will ever commit was laid on that cross and forgiven at that time with repentance through prayer and becoming more Christ-like and making that journey. That's who I am, you know.
mm.
And it's not a lot of people think it's about perfection.
No. I think when you focus on perfection, you go backwards because you really don't get to, because you need to fall, you need to lose to understand what you're fully capable of, you know?
Mhm.
Because I didn't, like, for me, I didn't understand why was I like this way. And then I started studying psychology, and I didn't go to school for it. I just kind of took the basic psychology, like, why do people do what they do? I had PTSD. So I'm like, why do I do this? What's causing this? And then once I got the concept, I'm like, but with starting with that, I don't want to leave the topic, but at the age, you said you were a little older when you connected with God. So in the beginning, you didn't no understanding of God, or you did?
No, when I was a child, I knew. I don't know how I knew, but I knew that I wanted a relationship with God.
Mm,
I at like 9 or 10 years old, I wanted to start doing my whole family is Catholic. Me and my brother, when we were adopted, right? And
mhm,
we were the only ones who weren't hadn't done catechism, communion, anything like that. And so I kind of felt like, a little bit of an outsider to my own family. So I wanted to do that.
mm,
And so I wrestled on Sundays, so I wasn't able to do catechism. So I never thought about God. That whole God switch at 8, 9, 10 years old turned off.
mhm.
And not until I was 19, 20.
Okay.
And then I started like craving, like wanting to know about Jesus, wanting to know about God. And then I started when I was in college. At the end of my sophomore year, I started like seeking out and going to church.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, what's your ethnicity? Like your background of all of that?
My like religious and
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, not religious, more so like your ethnic background, your bloodline.
Mexican.
You're
Yep.
Mexican.
100% Mexican.
So
Yeah.
you were technically, so were you weren't born from Mexico, were you?
Mm-mm.
Or you were born here?
I was born in America. Yep. So I'm a
Wow.
Mexican American. Yep.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
hmm
But your family's great. Do you have any reach with your other family?
So I talked with my
And we
biological
don't got to get in
I
detail
talked
with
with my
that.
biological father, and I know I think it's like 3 generations back. They're from Mexico.
Gotcha. Same here.
Yeah, and I forget the country. I gotta ask him again. Or like not the country, like the part of the country that is.
Mhm.
It's all Aztec land there. It's all Aztec land. Where we
Azteco,
originate.
yeah.
Yeah, and then my mom, my biological mother's side, a lot of them are my descendants are from Texas. So I don't know. We're very far back to Texas on my mom's side.
It's funny how that works, 'cause that's the same thing for me. Like my great grandma's from Chihuahua, Mexico,
Mhm.
and then I don't know exactly where my grandpa was from, but they all left Mexico, went to Tejas, and then went from Tejas to Florida, from Florida to Michigan, and then
Yeah.
back to Texas. So nobody, just us, stayed in
And
Michigan.
a lot of people migrated up back in that time
Mm.
when things was colonizing was starting to happen. I believe they were being pushed up. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
So now that we're on that topic, what's your thoughts on the whole, because I'm a diehard American, but I also love my roots. I love my roots with everything. So me being a Mexican American, what's your thoughts with our movement? Because I want to get like, especially for next month, I'm definitely gonna do something for Cinco de Mayo. I got some people coming in, and what's your feeling for that? Like, do you feel like we don't have enough people coming out, or what's your thoughts on that?
In terms of
Just like community and business and
shoot, man. Uh it's funny that you asked that because I don't know habla español, muy poquito español, so
hey, you know more
um
than some, bro.
but But, nah, I mean, I think it'd be cool to, see more people come out, you know, uh, you see it at the fiesta, at Cristo Rey,
Mhm.
but, there's more events like that going on around
Yeah.
throughout the year. That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
you ever heard of the baile?
Mm-mm.
Where they go do dancing, they have, like, the Tejano music and stuff like that?
Where at?
So, they used to do it at Crystal Ray, but when I was a kid, they used to have that.
Was it at Metro Bowl?
I think so.
I
But there was
remember
always
that.
fights going on.
Yeah, people getting shot.
Yeah, and so that's the reason why they stopped it, and I'm like,
Uh,
"Dude, we can't have nothing." Look at, like, if you go to Pontiac or Detroit, they have the big violas there, they have a good time, but there's always something going on. It's like, not to say anything, but it's like the people with color, like, they got this hot blood about them, and when you put music with that, we're gonna talk about this influence with music, right? But man, isn't it crazy how we are a beautiful culture. We have a bloodline that is just beautiful, and for us to let music make us look bad, it's kinda sad a little bit.
So it's interesting because I wanted to study epigenetics when I was like if I was gonna go further into school, I would want to get into like epigenetics and stuff like that.
Mm,
And with
diff
like DNA sequences, like what comes out, what's
Gotcha.
shown, and so the expression of your genetic makeup, right? Because there's a
Yeah.
trillion different versions of you that could have came out, but whatever expressions were made out of came out of your DNA, that's what's being shown. So um that's epigenetics, right? So I started, kind of that's the level of which I try to think. And so when I started looking at, okay, well, why is our blood so angry? Alcohol, what are these, situations? And then I'm like, I go back to it, it goes back to colonization. Um, People are angry. Look at all the trauma that happened.
Yeah.
Look at the trauma that happened to, the native
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
right? The indigenous people.
Yeah.
So when you take all that trauma and it's not able to be worked through.
Mhm.
It gets passed on. It
Yeah.
gets passed on. It gets passed on. And so now the result that what you're speaking of, the music and the alcohol, and then it mixes it allows that what's in the genetic makeup to be expressed because of what's been passed down to generations because it hasn't been healed.
Yeah.
You hear a lot about it. What you heal in yourself, you heal in your ancestors, right? And it's like that same concept of, a calling to someone in your lineage to look to start healing some of these generational, what people call them curses, but generational trauma.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
And there's proof that that actually runs generation after generation, even alcoholism, if I'm
Mhm.
correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So if that's all passed on, why can't anger and because even then part of the expression that your genetic makeup is the environment. So if part of the environment's the DNA coming from an angry, parent or an angry whatever, um now you got 33% of that aggression that's coming from the parent. Then you also have the environment from that parent. So now environment is another 33% of the
Mm.
expression, gene expression. So that's 66% of that gene expression is coming out of aggression because of the genetic makeup and the environment of who they're around. So now it's like an exponential chance that they're gonna end up with that same, and that's how it's passed because it's environment, right?
Now, back to your training. So as a kid, you got into wrestling. You did that. 18 comes. You're 18 years old. Now you're at that point at your age where you're developing. You're gonna get you're starting to grow up to as a full adult.
Well, you say that, but that's with the expectation that I knew about the real world at 18, which I didn't.
Facts.
So I had to do a lot of learning. How do you learn? You make mistakes.
Mm,
You mess up.
mhm.
You know, things happen. That's the only way that you can gain real life experience without ever being taught anything. You have to
Yep,
screw up
that's the
over
only
and
way.
over and over and over again. And so it took a lot of screwing up, a lot of screwing up. And I still mess up, here and there with little things,
Mhm.
but it's not like how I used to, you know what I mean, mess up. And so maturity over the years, learning from my mistakes, that's, what's allowed me to recoup and regenerate stronger than, before messing up. And the approach that's taken is the same as a loss in a wrestling match in life. If I mess up, it's the same as an L, as something,
Mm.
right? But I don't have to I ain't done for because I took an L. I got to get back up and compete.
Yeah, talking about that, how do you handle loss? Because everybody handles it. I mean, I've seen people go down south, bro, just drop it all. I give up. When you go through that loss of any match, like how do you pick yourself back up? What is your method?
Um, I guess it depends because I've had some. I guess I guess it takes for you to think that you've lost everything, and,
Yeah.
and and once you realize at the end of the day that aside from your health,
Yeah.
you're blessed. You know what I mean? If you have health and like that's like the more mature approach. You know, as I would that's what it boils down to, right? And so that's the mature approach that I'm at now. But 10 years ago, you're talking it's just dusting off and moving forward,
Mm,
dusting myself off. All right, I'm not gonna make that mistake again. I might make at that age. Do you know 10 years ago I might have made a similar mistake.
yeah.
I didn't make that exact same mistake, but in between those mistakes, I was, knocking everything down, knocking everything down, and it was like 10 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps back, But
Yeah.
at first, it was 3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Isn't it sad that when you see like really good people that that fight, it's like, I've watched fighting for so long and you see somebody lose and then you don't see them for the next 3 to 4 years and they're not gonna tell you it's because of the fight, but you're like, dude, you had so much potential.
Yeah. So in the fight game, in terms of losing, and it all see this is like okay, this is where it goes to then. So it
Yeah.
goes to identity. Who are you? Because when I was in college and I had just got done wrestling, I lost in the blood round, the All American round, my senior year. Um, I identified as an athlete, a wrestler my whole life, and there was nothing because at that point of immaturity that I was at, I didn't care about who I was outside of sport. It wasn't a part of, me to be worried about who I am outside of sport. So when sport ended, my life ended.
Mm,
And now I'm trying to put pieces together and figure out who I am. That's a dark place. And so when you have an identity in who you are and you know who you are and you can stand on that, that's where it doesn't matter because you're gonna pick yourself up. You're gonna move forward because you're not your loss. You know you're
yeah.
not whatever that is, you know?
Yeah. You know, and it took me I never like I said, I didn't do enough matches to get to that, but I think for me in life, I lost a lot, and then it took me to realize, and I think I told you the story about when I stopped in the bus, it was like the just to not get hit with the rain. I forgot what they call it, but you go the rest stop
Yep,
area.
yep, and the, with the cat
Yeah,
yep.
and I started crying and going through my little life bullshit, and I realized I lost everything.
Yeah, because you said you became homeless and you
Yeah,
had nothing,
I had nothing, and
and you said almost a modern day Job, like, almost like Job,
yep, the job, yep.
the Job story.
And that loss actually was my biggest gain because it made me open up and understand that there's gonna be many more losses. It's how I evaluate myself and accepting God that I know that my new incoming challenges are gonna be my success stories, you know?
Mhm.
And, but yeah, yeah,
'Cause you can't have triumph without challenge. You can't have triumph without, um, adversity, right? Or else it's not triumph, or else it's just a routine,
you're right.
right? And so unless there's adversity, unless there's something for you to overcome, unless there's, and that goes into tie into once you start understanding your purpose, that's when the real attacks are gonna happen because if you don't as long as you don't know who you are, it don't matter. But as soon as you find out who you are, those attacks from the devil are gonna come.
Yeah,
You know, and it's not that the devil is a single person, the devil is anything, this and that. If you don't protect yourself, then you subject yourself to the devil, to the
yeah.
temptation, to what you know what I mean?
Mhm.
People, and if you don't protect yourself, then you can be used as a medium for the devil to be the devil in someone else's life. So you not only
Exactly.
do you have to protect yourself for the sake of you and your soul and your life, but you have to protect yourself so that way no one else is impacted by, you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
like, no, like at the end of the day, you have choices. Yes, you do.
Mhm.
It's your choice to protect yourself or not. If you choose not to protect yourself, then you're opening yourself to whatever.
Yeah,
Right. And so now, yeah, you're right. Yes, you do have a choice. You chose not to protect yourself.
yeah.
That was your choice. And so it's like
Mm.
you protect everybody that you love and care about when you start protecting yourself in that aspect. And it's easier said than done because, like I said, you're not going to be attacked if you don't know your worth and you don't know who you really are and you
Yeah,
don't know your purpose. Why are you going to be attacked?
yeah. You leave yourself
You could
vulnerable.
be
Yeah,
comfortable, you can be rich, wealthy, it don't matter. It don't matter. You like why like you know what I mean? Like
mhm.
why would you be bothered if you're already comfortable in the jail cell door for eternity,
Yeah,
right? Like if you already wrote God off and you set him off and wrote him off, you're already sitting in that jail cell for eternity.
mhm.
Why is the devil going to come bother you? He's going to give you everything you want because you are comfortable in eternity jail cell already,
Gotcha.
you know?
Yeah, that's deep. That's really deep. So, getting into your amateur fighting, what for a lot of people that don't understand the development, what challenges did you fall into becoming the person you are now? Because you're a pro fighter, you're working your way up in the field. There's a lot of challenges that come with that that people don't talk about. What kind of challenges can you explain that kind of define you and
Yeah. Just like I said, purpose. Once you understand purpose, everything else is going to fall into place. Purpose and faith. Um, and they kind of coincide. And so, um, just understanding who you are, waking up every day, picking up that cross
mm,
every day, understanding what you're here for. So whatever you're here for, whatever your purpose is, you have to go do that. No matter how you feel, no matter what's happening, no matter anything, whatever your purpose is here, you need to go do that every day.
Nice.
And everything else will fall into place. Faith, prayer, patience. Um, when you see other people shine, don't get envious. Just clap for them and say, it's not my time yet.
Nice.
And eventually you're going
Yeah.
to start realizing it's my time now.
Mm.
This is my time now. You know what I mean? And so it's like, if you're jealous and envious, you're never going to have your time. You're never going to get your time.
You know, you brung up something that made me think of a YouTuber. I forgot his name. I want to shout him out so bad. He mentioned something. He said, there's a story that he heard. Someone told him. Faith, the way faith worked out for him, right, was if you always worried about your problems, the depression, all these negative things, you're basically giving into the devil, right? And when he realized that, he's like, you know, I need to give all my faith to God and not worry about the issues that are going on because God is going to give me what I need, even through my challenges, to understand what I need to get through. And I thought that was powerful. I'm like, damn.
I believe it's the book of Ephesians where it talks about for fear, worry, doubt, and anxiety. That's all the devil. That's all the works of the devil. So in Ephesians it talks about I'm not going to try to quote it exactly, but it's
Yeah.
who can gain another minute in their life by worrying. So if you cannot gain another minute in your life by worrying, why even worry? And if something's so small that you can't control, why try to control anything else?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Give it to God, let him have it. And so
Yeah. That's a good one. I like that.
yeah, that's in the book of Ephesians, which I now I'm reading the book of Job, but that was the one I was focusing on a lot before Job.
Nice. So let me ask you, what's the craziest thing you had to do to get ready for a fight?
Man, like
Preparation.
ever?
Yeah.
Oh goodness. um I'm gonna share my uncensored story.
Mhm.
I was like, again, I was young. Um I had went out the night before a fight. I had weighed in and I went out, got all messed up and trashed, and ended up waking up in a hospital bed,
Mm.
strapped to the bed, strapped to a gurney still. Um, Unstrapped myself, went and called my buddy, told him to come pick me up. Um, Left, went and slept for 6 hours, got up, ate lunch, went to the venue, was split open on my lip and my eye, told him it was from training, and then went out there and fought. So I had gotten knocked out,
Oh
got
no.
knocked out the night before in a street fight, wake up in the hospital, and then go and fight the next day.
Oh
Won a three
man.
round unanimous decision, and I got the dub. Yeah. Do you remember when Ron put on that show at the church on
Yes,
at
I
the
do
church?
remember
Yeah,
that.
there was that show. Yeah,
Wow. And what weight?
it was like 135. I fought at 135. I was like 19 or
And you didn't have to cut, did you?
no,
No?
no,
Oh my god, bro. I couldn't even imagine.
dude. Yeah,
Oh god,
that would
bro.
be the craziest thing that I had to get ready for.
All
Went
right.
that way.
That's nuts. You know, I especially drinking and then having to go to a fight. Oh my god, that would deplete me, bro.
That's why I have so much confidence nowadays, dude, because I was doing some crazy stuff like that. And I had never trained at that point and was going out there doing that. And so if I could go do that at that time with people who were training, even if I'm fighting dangerous fighters, I'm at least more confident than I was back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of confidence in that.
Yeah. Well, I want to twist it up. Just quick, you know, something stupid and crazy. If there was anybody historical, right? Anybody you would want to fight and why?
Anybody, just
Anybody.
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 Oh my goodness. Probably George Washington.
Why is that? Because I was just thinking the same thing too. Why is that?
I'd slap the dog water out of him. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Damn.
Nah, for real though. I don't know. I'd tell him not to go be a Freemason.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because he was a Freemason, wasn't
Yeah.
he? You know, what do
That's
you
just
think?
me being silly though. Like you said, silly, crazy.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on the Illuminati?
Man, I think, like I said earlier, there's dark forces that are, let me bring scripture into it because I can't bring the exact scripture again, but I know a lot of different things from scripture that because I've read, you know what I mean? Um, Jesus is not the God of this world.
Mm,
Jesus is not the God of this world. The devil is the God of this world. And it says it in scripture.
gotcha.
And so that's all I got to say about the Illuminati.
Mm, that's deep.
Yeah.
That's really deep,
Hmm.
actually. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to bring up was during your journey in life with fighting, you know, there's that time where you like, okay, this is real. This is gonna happen. And you stick to it. You're steady at fighting. You're building up your portfolio. When did you realize that this is it? Because I know a lot of people think like, and I'm not saying that they're not it. They believe in themselves, but then they don't continue and they don't, but when did you realize like this is it? Like I got this. It's here.
So I think it was like the day that like I think it was like when I committed, like the day, like right around the time that I fully committed to this stuff, and I was like, look, I don't care how it goes, win, lose or draw, I'm going to continue on this journey.
Mm,
And it was about 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I'm like training, every day, grinding, driving like an hour and a half from like Marietta to Noonan, like through Atlanta, from one side of Atlanta all the way to the other side of Atlanta out into the country, 3 days a week, going and getting it, grinding. That was when I decided, like, driving that far, I realized, look, at the end of the day, I'm driving this far. This is what we're doing. I'm really going to do this no matter what. So that was, but for me, even at that point, it was me chasing things down. I'm chasing my dreams. I'm chasing my goals. I'm, doing this. I'm doing that. Now the tables have turned and it's all coming to me. I feel like I'm chasing my goals. I don't feel like I'm chasing my dreams. I feel like that it's all coming and bleeding into me versus me where before where I felt like I was scrambling trying to chase some dream, some
yeah.
goal, but it's just like I align myself with who I want to be and what it takes and who I need to be the champion. And that's what I'm doing every day. And so that's why I think it's all coming to me now is because I've been doing that consistently now for a certain amount of time where it's like now it's coming to me.
How many total fights? You don't gotta do amateur, like just total your whole life. How many times? Yeah.
Street fights and all,
Oh, everything. How many
shoot,
times you
dude,
been?
probably about 300, 350,
Jeez.
probably.
Jeez. So you're conditioned.
Yep,
You're hella conditioned.
yep. I fought I fought pistols, I fought,
Shit. Yeah.
golf clubs,
Yeah.
so I've, yeah, man, I've, my head's ready to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
So getting into this mental health, we all understand like getting to know you now, you have God on your side, and that is like a double. It's like really good to help you when it comes to mental health. But for people that don't have God, right, and you're dealing with mental health,
Mhm.
there's ways to deal with it. How do you deal with it? And is there anything that you can tell people to help influence them?
Yeah, I think the first is we have to be able to not lie to ourselves. So the question is, how do we do that? How do we not lie to ourselves?
Mm,
Well, the first thing is we have to create self awareness because if we're not self aware, then we're just believing our lies that we're telling ourselves, and we have no chance.
yeah.
You have no chance because you can't get out of your mind if you don't know when you know what I mean, who you are, like, right. So it's like you have to understand self awareness. So you have to learn how to be more mindful, aware of your thoughts, aware of your feelings, aware of your emotions, aware of, what it is when you start getting upset. How do you start feeling before you get upset? How, what types of things do you do when you get irritated? Like what types of things? And then like the more mindful you can become and self-aware, the more you can start identifying these things that, eventually push you in a way where you don't want to be. So now you don't realize that you don't want to be there till you're lashing out or you're doing this, right? Or you're depressed or whatever emotion or whatever the end of it is, right? It could be anger, it could be aggression, it could be depression, it could be sadness. Whatever that extreme is that you go to, when you start being able to pick up on the cues, you start picking up on cues earlier and earlier and earlier. And then you can, once you start getting to that point where you've peeled back enough to where you know the cues that lead to that, you can then remove yourself. And right. And so if there's people in your life, now you have the power
Yeah.
because now you're like, all right, well, this keeps happening because I'm understanding. I'm getting upset, but I don't know why. And then you start figuring it out, and then you can start creating boundaries. And then, but if you don't create boundaries and you don't protect yourself, you're gonna always be depressed. You're always gonna be sad because you're always gonna deal with other people's stuff,
Yeah.
what they're putting onto you from that's been put on to them from other people because people do that, right? And so if we don't become self-aware to then know who should be around us and who shouldn't, that's when, we get into our struggles, and we're all struggle with it because we all
Yeah.
want, especially if you have a good heart, like you want to see the good in people. And so that's when that can take you on a directions. But if you can start seeing clear boundaries and start setting boundaries and understand that when that boundary's set, if that boundary's crossed, then that person's now disrespecting you. And you don't have to accept that. You don't have to act out. You just don't have to allow that to be in your, and
Yeah.
that's how you protect yourself from depression. That's how you protect yourself from, it's like, again, choices, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you might have lashed out because of what they said, but how many other red flags were there? How many other situations were there
Yeah.
where you could have set up a boundary that would have avoided this? So that was your choice to not. So then at the end of the day, yes, they did this and said this to you, but you allowed them in the space to even say or do that in the first place,
Got you.
right?
You know, you have a lot. Like, you have your foundation is nice. How you taking in information, how you learn from it, and how you progress in growth. Is there books? Is there things that you like to read that kind of guide you into that?
So there was like a handful of books. So I studied psychology.
Mhm.
I got my undergrad in psychology,
Gotcha.
and like I said, I wanted to start getting into like neuropsychology and like epigenetics. And so, there's some people like so essentially like neuropsychology is heavily dependent on like you can use that for like behavior modification and stuff. So if you like want to like change behaviors and stuff, if you start understanding neuropsychology, you can begin to combat your natural impulses. So you start getting into neuropsychology, start doing that. Um, yeah, so if you don't believe in God, that would be like, but I think eventually if you start going on that journey,
Yeah.
it's gonna start bringing you to
Yeah.
God. But that's what I think.
That's what it did to me.
Mhm.
Like, and again, I didn't go to school. I just learned why I was dealing with certain things, but it did lead me to God.
Mhm.
There's other extra things that had happened in my life that forced more to God, but like, yeah, you're right.
So, but it is you gotta be careful though, because there is areas where, like, it can become for, a follower or a believer, it can become you can get into this toe into this, like, this area where you start getting into this new age, like,
Real, fake.
just this new age, like, almost it could be essentially considered like witchcraft, like,
Yes. Yeah, I see.
essentially, because when you start getting, like, out of body or you start getting into these other aspects, it can become, like occultism and stuff like that.
Mm,
So yeah, so it's just you gotta really know what you're like research anything before, just diving into
got you.
stuff because that was like another thing that I had some scary encounters that ended up leading me to God, when I walked away from him from not knowing what I was doing, not knowing a deeper connection on
Yeah.
what things I was doing at the time to bring myself mindfulness, you know, so you gotta be careful because you can venture off into some very dark places.
It's funny you say that because I do know some very wise, smart people, like educated wise, that don't believe in God. They just are scientific based, but then get into, well, I don't believe in God, but then they start getting heavy in like Satanism and wanting to know more about it. And you just said that, like, it leads you into a spot where that education can actually get you into a whole fucking
Yeah, occultism, right? Because yeah, that's why like I always you don't wanna go down those dark tunnels, especially because we don't know how much time there is, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you don't wanna, like it was a 5-year journey, for me to come back
Mm.
to Christ. A 5-year journey, and even then, like, there was a lot, yeah, man, it's you get off into these other things that you don't know you're doing, and you now all of a sudden you're doing some occultism stuff,
Yeah.
and you don't even know what that it is. It's just some new age. Oh yeah, everybody's doing it. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you
Then you
play
get caught
with.
up in that mix. And
Now you're off in this stuff, having straight like seizure like symptoms.
and I
I've been
think,
there.
yeah, I think
I've been
actually
there.
that could be another episode. We'll
Yeah,
get into some other stuff with that.
yeah.
I want to get into you have a fight coming up in June.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that.
Yep. So June 9th, it's a title fight for a top regional promotion. That's a feeder to the UFC.
I've seen that. I've seen that.
They're signing guys right out of the cage sometimes.
And I'll post up a link, whatever you have set up, I'll link it up to the YouTube so everybody can see it.
Sweet. Yeah, it'll be on UFC Fight Pass June 9th.
Nice.
It's a Sunday. Yep.
Okay. That's awesome. Are you excited?
Yeah, man, it's against a guy. He's essentially he's a veteran, 10-2. He's been around, for a while. 10-2. He's
Yeah.
like a top 10 opponent in terms of unsigned in the United States.
Nice. So I know you can't really talk too much about preparation, but are you feeling good?
Yeah, man. I'm always training, so I'm always in shape in case anything, happens. So, I know that I'm always ready to fight, So to me it's not anything different.
You don't have off seasons?
I take 2 weeks off after my fights,
Gotcha.
and then I get right back to it. So, like, even if I don't have a fight lined up, I'm training like I have a fight lined up.
So you fight at you said 135
125.
125?
Mhm.
Oh god. So from 125, what's your walking weight?
Yeah, so I mean 143, 144. And then I diet down, I tighten up, and I end up usually cutting about 12, 13 pounds of water in the last 18 hours.
Mm,
So I'm, by the time I step in the cage again, I'm over 140.
gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. So where do you see yourself? I know it's hard to say 10 years, 5 years, but affirmation, right? Like we want to see ourselves be in a better place, right? Where do you want to see yourself?
Yeah, I'm gonna be champion, God willing,
Yeah.
champion. Some title defenses, retire at 35, regardless.
Nice.
Yep, I want to
Retire
be.
at 35?
Yep,
How old are you now?
I'm 31. I just turned 31,
Oh,
so I want to get in
you're
there,
good.
be the UFC champ, hold the belt, and then peace out. You know what I mean?
Nice.
At 35, and then start training world champions.
Yeah, so I'm what, 36.
Yeah,
You're pushing. I mean, now honestly, look, age, I don't think age is so much a factor when it gets into the game of fighting because if you're conditioned and you're healthy, I've seen guys push past 30 and do a good job.
yeah. At flyweight, you see it more at the heavier weights. It's harder thing to do at the lighter weights, but definitely doable.
Yeah.
But most champions you're looking at are 32, 33 years old. So that's looking to be a champion at 33, and I want to extend that 2 years. So that's gonna be that's my goal.
You know, in UFC, right? You don't see too many of that weight division. Everybody's like what
35.
35, yeah.
Mhm.
And so
All the other weights, that's what I'm saying. Like you have a
there'll be a new chapter, right? Something new, like
what do
I
you
know,
mean
like because they don't really promote that much. I've
at
never,
25?
yeah,
No, I mean not a whole lot. I mean you see some big fights. A lot of their bigger name guys moved up a weight.
got
Um,
you.
so really it's
Will you?
anybody's game to come in and be that guy.
Would you put some weight on to get up?
To 25
Mhm. No, yeah, well, yeah,
or to go to 35?
yeah, 35.
Absolutely not. Too short. Or
Yeah,
5'2", you know what I mean?
yeah.
So uh maybe if I get champ status,
I
maybe
mean,
I'll
look
fight
at
a
Khabib.
if I become champ, when I become champ, I will go maybe at the tail end, go up to
Yeah,
35 and try to get that double belt,
got you.
something like that. That wouldn't be, maybe one fight at 35 or something like that. But other than that, no.
All right. This is there's gonna be a part 2 with this. I have
Mhm.
to. There's so much more I wanna ask you that couldn't get out right now.
Yeah.
So there is a couple things I wanna bring up. Um, Now I do have another platform where I put, like, paranormal stuff, and we'll get into that stuff. But have you ever had any paranormal activity, like, any type of
I've had some s
experience?
I've had some stuffs. I've had definitely some things in my life a lot. And, like, again, like I said, I've had some things happen that when I look back on them, I'm like, "That had to be."
Can you tell us the story?
Yeah, so, I mean, so for one, I was sitting on a couch, I was, like, hungover, just been doing, partying and drinking and smoking and doing everything and being cloudy-minded the whole time, right? I th Even at that point, I think I was, like, popping pills, dude, but, out of nowhere, it was like 2 lightning bolts. Boom, boom. The first lightning bolt that hit me was, like I said, from God. It was, "You need to go back to school." Boom, "You need to wrestle." And it was just boom, boom. From that day forward, there was no question. There was not it wasn't like I made that thought. It was like God told me, "This is what I'm gonna do."
Yeah.
And so, to me, that was like divine, like, intervention, essentially, I would think, where it was like a straight message from God saying, "You're gonna do this, and you're gonna do that." Okay? From that
Yeah.
day on, there was never, like, a question, there was never a doubt, it was, "That's what's happening." And no matter, even I was still partying at the time, but it was like, I was taking care of school, and I was getting back to wrestling. And so, I would say that was one of them. Um, yeah, another one was, a time I was, on mushrooms at the time,
Mhm.
and, I was off, you know, off my rocker, and, I was listening to music, getting off into this other space, and, God came to me. I was off in a dark, dark place at this time. This is the one event that brought me back and pushed me in the direction back toward God
Mm.
and away from, like, self-worship was, God said something to me. I cannot remember what he said. He declared something to me, and I objected and argued back with him. I can't remember what was said,
Mm.
but once I realized that I was arguing, that it was God that was there, that's when I, like, got kick flipped. Like, it was like he waited for me to realize who I was talking to and that I was arguing with him, and he kicked me out. One, it was like, as soon as, like, I thought about it and I realized that that was him, boom,
Oh,
gone. And I can't I ended up having, like, a crazy bad trip. I came out of it and, like, had some, um so basically, so then I get into the bath because I would, when I was uncomfortable, I would get in the bath, and then there was, like, an energy that was inside of me that I ended up feeling moving around. It was uncomfortable, and
gotcha.
so there's, like, an energy inside of me that was pushing it out, and, it was like they were clouds. It was a light cloud and a dark cloud. And the dark cloud got pushed completely out of my body, but it was attached to me through the clear cloud. So the clear cloud was out of my body, and it was all the dark cloud, and the dark cloud was looking at me using my eyes, and I was seeing it through my eyes. So it was a my eyes
Yeah.
were the medium for us to see each other. And I said, "You're not in control. I am."
Mm.
And then I like sucked back into my body, and I started dunking myself in the water. And then I started, like, trying to, like, drown myself.
Damn.
And, I went to, like, lift my head up one time because I was, like, reaching that point of, like, just exhaustion, and I felt God's hand on my head. It was just a hand, and he said, "I didn't tell you to get up," and he put my head back under the water. And then after, so I don't know how much time went by, he lifted my head up and he said, "Alright, now you can get up."
Mm.
So then I got out of the bath and started praying, and I hadn't prayed for, like, over 4 years at this point. I had just done self-worship and just stuff like that all the entire time, meditating my higher self, praying to my higher
Mhm.
self. So then I go in my room and get on my knees and pray, and I go to get up, and I feel God's hand touch my shoulder,
Mm.
and I freeze, and he says, "I didn't tell you you could be done praying. Keep praying."
Nice.
So then I go back and I keep praying, and then after a while, he says, "Alright," he lifts me up and he says, "Alright, you can get up." And then I thought I needed like a I freaked out after that because after I felt all them, he left. I felt the energy, like his presence. Like I felt his presence leave. And then I freaked out saying that I needed like a exorcism. I thought I needed exorcism, but um I didn't.
Yeah,
Um
you basically did the part.
yeah, so yeah, so ever since then I started making my way back to Christ, and it was like a 3-year journey until I like ended up getting baptized,
Mhm.
you know, again. And even then, after that, I still have the attacks. The attacks are still there,
You know,
you
that's
know.
spiritual awareness. So like when you're aware, you're always going to be in challenge because
Hmm.
so there's this priest I was listening to, and I'm raised Catholic,
Hmm.
and anytime you serve God is when you're gonna get challenged the most with the devil
Hmm.
because that's just how it works. I mean, there's even cases that with exorcisms, most of the people that are being exorcised were the most holiest people that believed in God, and that's because that's part of the challenge.
Hmm.
One last thing I want to hear from you, bro. Is there anything inspirational that you can put out to the world right now? So whoever's watching from now to later to inspire them and help build them up. Is there anything that you would like to say right now?
Yeah, it's one that I've stuck with for a long time. It's, basically, the darkest part of the night is right before the light shines through, right? So,
Mm,
um, if you're walking, and you're on your journey and it's dark and you don't see any light, just keep taking them steps, because every step you take, you're closer to seeing that light. And I know a lot of times you can't see light, and maybe that means you are the light. And so light can't see itself sometimes, right? So, just continue taking that step forward, continue moving forward, and yeah, that's how you
beautiful.
end up making your way out of the darkness.
I like that, bro.
He'll be there. He'll be there.
How do we find you? How can everybody find you?
So I'm most active on Instagram, the Comeback Kid, THE, and then the number 3, and then Comeback Kid.
Anything else?
I don't really use Twitter a whole lot yet. Once I get moving on in the UFC, I'll probably be using that
How
more.
about Facebook, YouTube?
Facebook, you can find me on there.
Okay.
You can follow me on there. I do a lot of information releases on there too.
All right. If you want to put it out, you can. Anything
Yep.
that you
So
want to put out.
yeah, just Freddie Rodriguez. You'll be able to find me. Um, but like I said, Instagram is where
That's
I'm
where you're
most
main.
active. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah. If you guys like this video, make sure you subscribe.
Subscribe.
If you're viewing it, like and subscribe.
Thank you, brother. Alrighty. Thank you for watching the episode. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. We will be coming out with some hot topics and some new episodes that you don't want to miss.